Good morning and welcome to Adrian Beyond the Classroom. And I do apologise for people who've had a look at original version of this video, but I was having some technical problems on my visual and on the sound. So I do apologise for that. So moving on from what I've done so far, in the first video, we were looking at the year I was born in 1956 and the decade 1956 to 66. I want to keep to that decade because a lot was going on, and I want to just make sure that everything we do is linked up. And the decade is about different aspects that connect us together as people, and we all have different experiences. So one of them was about the beginnings of my life, which obviously I didn't really know about the Suez Crisis. But the irony is that the Suez Crisis took off in 1956, and here we are in 2026, and now we have the Straits of Hormuz. So that was the first video, number one. Video number two was about DNA and how we judge ourselves, possibly by the way we've been brought up in life with parents. And that was always a nature nurture type of video there. But this one is much more interesting as far as I'm concerned. It's the connection we have as human beings to music. Now, in the 1960s, from early 1960s, we had this massive culture clash between two fantastic bands, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And these were iconic groups that changed the way pop and music developed today. And we still have Paul McCartney, and we still have Ringo Starr, and we still have Rolling Stones Mick Jagger around, and how he would still perform today in his 80s. So these people who go into music have a passion for it. Now, what makes us like one or the other? And that's the question I want to ask you today. And this is where you must get involved. So Beatles or Rolling Stones? And I'll tell you where I'm sitting with this. And I think that sometimes we think that music, is it that music makes us behave in a certain way, or does our personality like a certain type of music? I'm not sure. There's two notions to that. But I tend to be a more sort of optimistic person. I do have situations in my life, which I will share with you later, where there were struggles that I had to deal with at a very young age. And these type of things you all have probably gone through yourself. You know, when we have families, we, in the early stages, we don't have much control about what happens when we're little, but as we go through the various cycles of life, we do. So it's about getting involved and telling me your point of view. Now, I would say I was sitting very comfortably with the Beatles. The Beatles, to me, were melodic and sort of gave optimism and made me feel happier and made me feel in a better mood. Whereas the Rolling Stones were kind of innovative and seen as the bad boy band and were more dark with their views about life. And again, there's no criticism of either, you know, it's what our preferences are and how we generate our preferences on these type of things. So the challenge I want you to sort of do is to get in touch and tell me where you sit with this. Are you a B follower? You're probably not follower of either. And then give me your thoughts about what you do like. And how, ask this question as well and kind of pass this on. How important is music to you? When do you use it? Are there particular times? I mean, I have several times when I listen to music. And again, it depends what I'm doing when I am listening to music. Sometimes it's literally just listening to music in the background and making me feel relaxed. when I'm driving, I don't want anything too distracting. And I will often put the radio on, and I will either listen to programs that we have in the UK, like Smooth Radio, and I'll often look at look at Classic FM, where there is classical music. Not that I'm a great exponent of classical music, etc., etc. So how do you use music? And the final question I want to ask today, and this is really, really important, is when, I'm assuming that I'm going to get a lot of people who've been in this era as well. So I'm always thinking about my looking ahead and looking to the future. And we all have our concerns. So what are your concerns if you're around the sort of 60s, 70s? Maybe you've been retired. I don't know. What are your concerns that you worry about as life goes on? And how do you deal with that? I mean, one of the people have mentioned in many of my previous videos as a tutor is the remarkable David Attenborough. And I think that here is a man who is now 100. And I used to do a chart, and it's a circle. You divide the chart into 4 quarters. So picture this, a circle, 4 quarters. And in the first quarter, you look at the ages 0 to 25. Now, those, to me, that first quarter of life is the formative years, growing up, childhood, and developing into adulthood, and probably establishing your first role or job or career, whatever it is. Then we get the next cycle, the next quarter, second quarter, which goes from that age of 25 to the age of 50. And this is where most people are really pushing hard to reach the pinnacle of what they want to do, all the effort. This is the moment. This is the time when I can get up the ladder, etc., etc. And then we get this other grey area, 50 to 75, of which my cycle is in now. And it's a bit of a non-cycle. It's more about looking ahead to retirement. Sometimes I think the word retirement is a bit harsh. I think that we slow down a bit, and maybe we don't do as much as we used to do. But there's no such thing as retirement for David Attenborough. Now, how many of us are going to make the final quarter? That's the 75 to 100. Well, you've got your role model, David Attenborough. So he does it. So all of these things, I want to get to know what people think, what makes them motivated. We all have links and loves of, it seems to be, of music. What are the other things that connect us? The other things that I've also noticed about music and about the society today, and this is hope for the future. We often worry when we're older that people will call us old school and talk about us, that we don't really, fit in with the society of today. But in fact, if you look at what's going on in the population in the world, a lot of people are getting involved in this retro kind of culture. So it's a kind of nostalgic way of looking at things in the past and making them more modern. For instance, we get, in the time that the Beatles were around, we all used to go and buy our LPs, our albums, vinyl, and people now have a record player which has been modernized but still evolves back into the past and the history, and it's an amazing way of connecting. So it shows you that those people who are young and look back or look in history nostalgically at what happened in the past, they're actually learning quite a deal about humanity, and it's connecting us together. So there's lots of hope in that. Anyway, so please, today, apologies for the videos I was putting out earlier. I hope this one is a bit clearer, and I hope that you get in touch. Please do make comments. I really want the feedback from everybody. Look, whatever age you are, this is not just because I'm older, and I'm talking about the 7 decades that I'm heading towards. In October this year, I hit that magical 7-0. There are a lot of things that have happened. I mean, there's a massive one for those who love football. England won the World Cup in 1966. That is incredible. And what's going to happen this year is we've got another World Cup in 2026. So can we, in this pivotal moment, do something that we haven't done for a long time? Anyway, you're never too late to learn, to change, to move, and have ambition. I'm one of these people looks forward. I do reflect back, of course, as we all do, but sometimes looking back, it's not always the best thing to do. But again, I want your views. Do you think looking back is good for you, or sometimes can it make out that you don't connect in the world today? Okay, then. Thank you very much for your time, and let's move on.